Hi, I am so happy to present to you the subject of safer disinfectants. We'll be talking about naturally disinfectants that are safer to use and also a website that I produced called Safer Disinfectants. Now, unfortunately, most disinfectants that we are using carry health risks. And on safer disinfectants, you can find the ones that are safer to use. Now, what are some of these health risks? You can look in the scientific literature and very clearly see many references to health impacts of using disinfectants, mostly respiratory impacts. Here's a paper that says the possibility of anaphylaxis cannot be excluded. When you Google quaternary ammonium and respiratory distress, you get more than 250,000 search results. So our goal is to go from the literature to actually using safer disinfectants. And here's our path for the presentation. I'm going to start by sharing EPA's list of disinfectants, which is called List N. I'll share some details. I'll give you a demo of the Safer Disinfectants website. We'll do a little section for the nerds among us about the tools that we're using for this website, talk about how you can help, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. And you might ask, why are we talking about disinfectants at a pesticide conference? And the answer is that disinfectants are pesticides. And the EPA requires that companies register disinfectants. There's a whole process for doing that. Here's an example of a disinfectant called BioPledge Antimicrobial Power. And we can see the notice of registration by the EPA. And as we look in the details, it says, on the basis of information furnished by the registrant, the above named pesticide is hereby registered under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. We could maybe get more information about a pesticide by going to their website. Let's take a look at some of these claims. It kills SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID. It can be used on hard, non-porous surfaces, and it'll do its work in 3 minutes. Now, we don't have to keep visiting websites and registration forms to get details about which disinfectants are used on the virus that causes COVID, because luckily the EPA created a tool for us that lists all of the disinfectants that are approved for use on SARS-CoV-2, and they call this tool List N. They actually have a whole alphabet, and List N is the one that lists disinfectants used for COVID. So let's take a look, and we can create a Google search and search for List N tool, and that will bring us to this page. And it says all products on this list meet EPA's criteria for use against SARS-CoV-2. And these products are for use on surfaces, not humans. So let's launch the tool and see what it offers. It starts out with a couple of options up here, and then it immediately brings us down to this detailed table. It offers us a registration number, the active ingredients, the product name, the company, what directions we should follow, and how long it takes, the formulation type, the surface type, the use site, and why is it on List N. So in some cases, it's not known if it actually kills SARS-CoV-2, but it kills a harder to kill pathogen. And you can use the EPA's tool to search, for instance, by use site. Let's say I wanted to search for disinfectants used in healthcare. Let's say I wanted to search for healthcare disinfectants that are used on hard, non-porous surfaces. Now I can go ahead, and now we have a filtered list for disinfectants used in healthcare on hard, non-porous surfaces. So that's basically the List N tool, but it doesn't really tell us, is this one of the safer disinfectants, or is it one of the disinfectants that causes increased risk to our health? So we're now at the details portion of this presentation. But in essence, what we've done with safer disinfectants is create a sorting hat for disinfectants that are safer or increased risk. Let's take a look at one of the most common active ingredients, which is quaternary ammonium. That is increased risk. And among the safer active ingredients is hydrogen peroxide. Why are we using the term safer and not safe? Well, we don't actually know what the inactive ingredients are. We don't know what else is in there. And that's why we've come up with this term called safer, because we know that hydrogen peroxide is safe. So this is a list of all of the active ingredients for use in disinfectants that are on list N. And this is, in essence, the sorting. You don't have to memorize this list, of course, but a few things to note. On the increased risk, you'll find a lot of active ingredients that have the word chlorine or chloride or chloric. That's a good clue for you. On our website, we have a blog post that I want to bring to your attention, which is what chemicals are risky and why. And it has references on the impacts for each one that we identified as riskier. So now let me take you to the website, saferdisinfectants.org. So here we are. And one of the first things you might want to do is join our email list. Of course, this is a project with the Maryland Pesticide Education Network, so you can sign up for updates. But now let's go back and take a look. The EPA created a list of disinfectants that kill the virus that causes COVID-19. Many carry an increased health risk. And when you explore the list, you can search and sort and filter and make charts, and there's even an API for web developers. So I'm going to take you through each one of these capabilities. Let's start by looking at the list. So here's the list. We have 591 rows on the list, out of which 494 carry the increased risk designation and 97 are safer. So if we want to find something on this list, let's search for BioPledge, which we looked at before. We can just do it on my computer. I can press Command F with a regular find. You might do Control F if you have Windows. And here we see that BioPledge is one of the increased risk disinfectants. And I promised I would show you the ability to sort. Let's look by date on list N. We can sort by descending order. And now we can see what the most recent ones were added to list N. We can also filter the list. So let's say I just want to find the safer disinfectants, begone riskier ones. And let's say I want to find safer disinfectants used in healthcare, perhaps on non-porous surfaces. And now we've honed down the list to the 85 that fit those three criteria. You could add more filters. Let's say we wanted to look at active ingredients. Again, hydrogen peroxide, one of the most common active ingredients. So I invite you to explore this list. We do have a couple of charts on the list. I find the by company chart to be interesting to look at. And the reason I find it interesting is you can tell which companies are producing only increased risk disinfectants, which ones are producing both. And then there's the rare company that's only producing safer disinfectants as you go through this list. Now, there's some supporting materials on the website. There's a how to use page that will remind you of some of these features. You can contact us on the page. There's frequently asked questions page, and on this page you'll see these lists of what's safer, what's riskier, and some more information. And I've also been blogging changes in the list over time. So in addition to that blog post that I shared earlier, every time the EPA does an update, I've been able to identify what did they add to the list and is it safer or is it toxic. It's been a real pleasure to work with the Maryland Pesticide Education Network on this project. Bonnie's been my closest compatriot in this work, and it's just been a delight to work on this with her and her team. So in essence, our website is a list where you can do all of these things. Oh, by the way, the API was a way where you could see that little dashboard at the top where I'm pulling information from the data and just able to summarize totals, which is a nice feature of the website as well. So I promised you a section for nerds, and I want to share that the EPA shares data that looks like this. So every day my website goes out and retrieves a file that looks like this. And then if there's any changes to that file, I rewrite that data so that it looks like this. And then my code examines the active ingredients and then assigns a risk level. So one thing that's pretty cool about this process is that every time EPA does a change up here, it automatically gets reflected on our website. And we can actually track those changes and turn them into a blog post. So I'm able to see a change tracking visualization that looks like this. For instance, initially it was designated as killing a harder to kill pathogen than SARS-CoV-2. And then eventually in October, it was tested against SARS-CoV-2. So now, rather than following the directions for porcine circovirus, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, now it is, you can follow the directions directly for SARS-CoV-2. And then here is a totally new addition to the website. Now, in this case, it has both a safer ingredient, the isopropyl alcohol, and a riskier ingredient, quaternary ammonium. So this new disinfectant will be labeled as increased risk. And then from that, I'm able to turn it into a blog post. And what I'm excited by is that you can do this too. If you have government data sets that are out there in the world and they're changing over time, this technique can be used. I learned about this at a conference on March of this year. He presented, Simon Willison presented a 5-minute lightning talk. And that's where I learned how to do this. And it's also where I learned how to create this interactive tool. And if you have data sets of your own that you want to do this with, it's actually very easy to do. And I'd love to work with you to bring more data sets to life like this. But in the end, we have a sorting hat for disinfectants, and I'm going to invite you to help us to get the word out. So here are some ways you can help. First of all, you can visit the website. Please use safer disinfectants. Join our email list and give us feedback. Remember, every day we're finding the new data from the EPA, and every once in a while there are some quirks in that data. So please give us feedback if you see anything of note. And we will ask you to please share a link to safer disinfectants from your website. Right now, if you Google safer disinfectants, you won't find the site. So we need to have links in order for Google to know that it's there. So please make a note. And you can also share saferdisinfectants.org with your networks in other ways. Perhaps you can send an email to your list. You could schedule a demo with us if you like. And finally, on the website, there's an opportunity to share your stories of safer or even of increased risk disinfectants. We'd like to hear from you. And now we've come to questions or comments. Thank you.